Hi, this is Woki, and today I'm going to be doing Top 5 Wednesday. So Top 5 Wednesday is a Goodreads group with themes for people to post their top 5 lists of every Wednesday. And I will link to this group below. So the theme for today is top 5 books you will never read. And I am always wary of dealing in absolutes, so I just want to issue the caveat that I totally reserve the right to change my mind and one day pick up one of these books, but right now I don't see that happening. So the first book is really more just an author. I don't think I will ever read anything by Mary Roach. Mary Roach is a really popular science writer. I think she's well known for combining kind of like a sense of humor with her science writing, which is always welcome. She's written Stiff, which is a book about cadavers, Bonk, a book about sex, and some other books as well. I think those are the ones that I've heard the most of. And I actually read part of Stiff because I wanted to learn about cadavers and I thought it sounded really interesting. But I got really frustrated really quickly because one of the things that I realized was a pretty big signature of her writing, at least in Stiff, is kind of the frequent need to remind the audience that she's writing about cadavers by like kind of doing that sort of tee, like, isn't it so crazy that I'm writing about cadavers? Like, oh, I ended up in this situation because I'm writing about cadavers. Like, oh yeah, I'm writing about cadavers. And I started finding it really distracting from all the actual information about cadavers. And I don't know if this is like me being like a snooty science person who just doesn't need that and like really just wants the facts. Like maybe this appeals more for people who aren't snooty scientists and like can enjoy books that like take into account the author's like fascination with the fact that they are fascinated, I guess. But I just found it really distracting. And the reason I actually stopped reading is that she got to a point where she describes an attractive female scientist by saying she doesn't look like a scientist, and I just found that's a phrase in general that I just find incredibly aggravating. And yeah, by that point I'd already lost my patience with the book, so I just stopped reading, and I'm finding it hard to believe that I will read more of her books. I mean, it's bad. I know other people who do like her books, but it's just, they were definitely not for me. Number 2, I'm grouping these together. These are 2 books, or 2 series, but they're pretty interrelated, so I felt like I might as well combine them. These are Twilight and 50 Shades of Grey. Twilight came out when I was reading a lot of YA paranormal romancy kind of things, and I had no interest in it. 50 Shades of Grey came out when I was reading a lot of romance. I also had no interest in it. They just didn't appeal to me, and hearing that the writing was really bad and that there were all these kind of like weird abusive kind of dynamics going on made me really uninterested. And then on the flip side, a lot of people were kind of doing their hate reads, and they were funny for like a second, and then they were just kind of boring and almost kind of mean to the people who liked the books, and I just didn't get invested in either direction. So I actually have seen the first 50 Shades of Grey movie, I've seen the first Twilight movie, I think I saw like the third, I don't know how many Twilight movies there are. I've seen like at least 1.5 of them. They were okay. I don't feel like I wasted my life or anything. Number 3, this is another YA author that's really popular. I don't think I will read any of J Maas's books. I get sad because I don't like to bash YA because it gets bashed on for very unfair reasons. The reason that I find a lot of the very popular books in YA frustrating is because there's so much potential, like especially like in fantasy, YA is so great for these incredibly well thought out worlds, but then where it falls short for me is just like in the writing, like the actual like word by word, the choices in diction and syntax just are so frustrating to me. I find the dialogue is often stilted. The descriptions are still like just wooden and don't really inspire anything in me. The characters and their thought processes don't always make sense. I'm generalizing very broadly, but this was something that I found true when I tried to read one of Sarah J Maas's books. I think it was the Throne of Glass series. I tried to read it and it just was I was very distracted by the writing and it just didn't work for me. Again, this is not a thing that's universally true for YA, so I don't want that to like kind of fall into that same trait, like, oh, YA is all terrible writing. It's not generally true of YA, nor is it unique to YA. Every genre, I think, has these problems. It's just something that I notice a lot in YA because I get so excited for the stories because the worlds and the premises sound so exciting, and then the execution for a lot of books has fallen short for me. The fourth thing on my list is another thing that I'm kind of sad about. Actually, I don't think I've been sad about the other ones. This one I'm actually sad about. This is Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. I will say in general that I have not been excited for anything that J.K. Rowling has written after Harry Potter was done. Harry Potter itself is like hands down like the series that I like. If I had to save a book series from a burning building, I'll probably save Harry Potter. I mean, that's a series that I grew up with. Those books on my shelves are like beloved. I mean, I started reading it when I was the same age as Harry. I feel like I'm in that generation that actually grew up with Harry Potter. Like when I graduated from high school, the 7th book came out. When I graduated from college, the last movie came out. Like all of these things, like the series is super, yeah. I don't really even have a way to coherently explain. I just love that series. But like I said, nothing that J.K. Rowling has written after it has been exciting to me. I think that I never finished Casual Vacancy. I don't think I really made it past a few chapters. The Robert Galbraith books, I've read them all, but I don't think that they're particularly great. I find them really tedious. I only kind of stay invested because like the main characters, like I kind of want to see what happens to them, but even then I don't know, they just don't really work for me. And then everything that comes out about Harry Potter, like Pottermore, is just always so disappointing, and I just find that kind of thing is for me better served by fandom. I rather would have the world of Harry Potter and the characters built out now by fans than by J.K. Rowling. She's done things that are either not great, kind of offensive, uninteresting, and Cursed Child is for me kind of the height of like, I don't care. I've read the plot to it. It sounds weird. It's probably better than it sounds, but I just am not interested and I can't see myself reading it. And last is another popular series. This is pretty much anything after the 4th book in A Song of Ice and Fire. So I read the 1st book, I loved it. The Game of Thrones, I loved it. I read the 2nd book, loved it. 3rd book, loved it. Started reading A Feast for Crows, and I just suddenly didn't care. I think by that point, what I found is that there's only like 2 or 3 characters that I care about. Everybody else is just filler. So like Sansa, Arya, Marjorie, I think at that point, by the time I finished, like they were really the only people that I was interested in. Everybody else, I was just like, can we get through this? Can we get through this? I don't really think I can. So I stopped reading it. The TV show is the same way for me. I just didn't care about most of the characters. So it was just like, why am I sitting here for an hour every night for like hopefully 10 minutes of screen time that I actually care about? I think what would be great is if like when all the show is done and all the books are done, you could get like an edited version that only contains what's relevant to the characters you care about, and everything else is just like discarded. Because yeah, I don't really care. I don't really care about like Jon Snow and everyone else. I know they're important to the plot. I know Dany's important to the plot. I just don't really have any interest in what's going on in her life. So luckily the internet is there to spoil me for all of it. I love Game of Thrones spoilers because they let me know why I am or am not happy that I'm currently watching the show. Yeah, I mean, the other big factor is that the use of sexual violence just got to the point where it wasn't even offensive to me anymore. It was just boring. Like, just find something new. Yeah, so I don't think I'm gonna finish that series unless something happens at the end, like if Sansa and Arya just kind of like take dominion over the whole world and I don't know, declare themselves queens of the universe, like then maybe I'll go back and read to see how that happens, but right now that doesn't seem to be the case, so I will probably not finish. Like, do you think any of these books I've kind of unfairly dismissed without having read them, any of the authors that I mentioned, convince me, agree with me, tell me which books that you wouldn't read? Yeah, and bye.